skincare. And I am super excited to share this interview with you with Dr. Anna Cabeca. This is a mind-blowing interview and such a unique way to look at hormones that most of you have never heard before. So stay tuned. If you love it, share it out. Especially we gotta help more women with hormone balance. So please, if you resonate with it, share it out. I don't endorse every book I read, but I gotta tell you, this book is off the hook. So I will leave the link in the show notes here so you can go and order her book and just sit back and enjoy. This is a really special interview.
Okay, resetters, I think we're live. I hope all of you are hopping on. I know we got a little delayed because Dr. Anna and I have a ton to talk about. So before we even started the broadcast, we were chatting away, and I'm just really excited to have you on Resetter TV, Dr. Anna. So welcome. Let me start off by saying that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I was filling you in on my resetter community and how this community is very thirsty for the information that you're delivering. And I was sharing, for those of you guys in the resetter group, I was sharing with Dr. Anna, her book is Off the Hook. So here's her new book. I'm sure, yeah, there you go. I was just going to say, you're probably walking around with this thing attached to your hip.
I am.
Yeah, and her book is amazing. And let me tell you why it's amazing. I'm actually pretty picky about books because I want usable information. And you did an amazing job with this book, like just giving people, here's something to think about with your hormones. And then you tell a story about somebody who applied that principle. So it's incredible. If you haven't read her book or gotten it yet, I really encourage you to. And what I really want to start off with you, Dr. Anna, is your own personal story, which I think a lot of women can resonate with how stress affects our hormones. So before we dive into keto and hormones, can you share a little bit about how you came to all this information?
Yeah. It's actually a twofold journey because really, I started I experienced, let me just say this, post-traumatic event. I experienced menopause at age 38. And I was told I was irreversibly menopausal, infertile, would never be able to have another child again. And so through my journey and really going around the world looking for answers, I was able to reverse menopause, which even as a gynecologist, I'm like, reverse menopause? Like who reverses menopause, right? Let alone, infertility. So I reversed menopause and had a beautiful baby at age 41. I conceived her at age 41. So she just had her 11th birthday and now I'll be 53 this year. So it's been a journey. So that was the first, experience. And then I was kept with good hormonal balance for nearly a decade, and age 48 hit me. So typically the time where you'd expect a menopause or early menopause again to hit. But it was accompanied by this brain fog and then experiencing, Mindy, what all my patients would come in experiencing and tell me. They would say, Dr. Anna, I'm gaining 5, 10, 20 pounds and I'm not doing anything different. Mm-hmm. And that's when I would say, really? Yeah. Really, you're not sure.
Yep. I think
that can't be possible.
Yep, that's crucial. And I hope every woman hears that because that's what many doctors are thinking.
And I tell you, in my 30s, I totally believe that, right? And the same thing, experience with hair loss. I had hair loss all the way to the crown of my head, like all the way back. And, experiencing that hair loss and fatigue and that weight gain coming back on. It's like, okay, God, I get it, right? I got to learn this lesson. And so that was part of getting into, again, the concept of, oh, you know what? I need to really restrict. I need to fast and cut out all carbs, go keto. I know that there's reasoning for that. This was back in 2014, 2015. But every time I did that or tried to put my perimenopausal patient on a restricted carbohydrate diet, they would complain like they don't like how they feel on it, or they felt irritable, or they hit a wall, or, and for me, I called it going keto crazy.
I like that phrase in your book. Anyways, continue, but it's a great phrase.
Gotta have a sense of humor, right? Especially when you're a bit crazy.
Yeah.
So that was that kind of irritability at that point in my life, post sequela that I talk about as I went through my journey of post-traumatic stress. Post that, I was a single mom with kids, and Ava was in elementary school. I had 2 in high school, and they talk about terrible 2s. Let's talk about teenage years, right?
Oh, yeah. I got a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. I'm very familiar with that.
Right? The 2s were nothing.
Nothing. I take the 2s over the 12s and 13s and 14s in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so you need that mental clarity. So the weight gain. And so I was like, well, what is happening? What's happening to my neurotransmitters? What's happening to my hormones to make me feel this way? I was a researcher before I went to medical school, and I researched for a psychology department. I researched for the US Navy and physiology. And so I just started digging up the research. And first I started checking my functional medicine roots, like check your urine pH. I tell my patients do it day in, day out. Acidic with a pH at the bottom of my test strip that was just 5, because that's as far as it goes, 6. So it was probably, very acidic. And it was like, okay, well, we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul to produce the nutrients we need to maintain our blood pH, right? Mm-hmm. So what's happening here? And so I looked at some of the research, and I only found one study that combined ketosis and alkalinity from 1924. And I was like, aha moment for me. Just that's really the combination we need to make. And let's bring this into our diet and lifestyle. So I just started adding the low carbohydrate, really leafy greens. So beet greens, the things people throw away, great nutrition, right? Great alkalinity, great for detoxification. Kale, chard, collards. We're in the South here, so collards, and all those dark green, and the sprouts, and the broccoli sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, name it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the herbs and other alkalinizing herbs to add into the ingredients, and then also thinking, well, reading about some of the other tribal, the keto tribal societies like the Alaskan Inuits, and thinking, how could they do it, just on this high fat diet? Well, they drink bone broth, right? So bone broth, that's the minerals back. That's the alkalinizers back that they found kept them probably sane and in good community. And so those were aha moments that kept developing. So I created this, I call it Keto Alkaline or Keto Green nutrition plan for the for menopausal women or perimenopause, because we're the toughest population to deal with. Our metabolism goes into a stall, and we're rewiring. And, we have to honor that in a healthy way. So we have to support that rewiring, that transition time from periods to no periods. And I say that because, menopause is mandatory, we're going to have that. Suffering is optional. Yeah. And
so important.
Yeah. And so figuring that out was key. And so I started that, and not only recognizing how just simply measuring urinary pH makes a difference in our life. Now, thousands of my clients have been, sworn believers, because it doesn't just measure how our body is being nourished. It also is a factor of how stress and toxins and food sensitivity affect our body chemistry at the cellular level. Mm-hmm. So our urine pH, very simple and cheap way to kind of, guide us on this journey as well. So that was my experience, and quickly lost weight, quickly lifted the brain fog, and I call it energized enlightenment, this clarity. And I was able to get on my path and follow my passions.
Yeah. I'm one of those thinkers that I have to think in a bigger picture, and then I can go down into the details. And one of the things that I really resonate with what you just said and what I saw in your book, and I'm seeing in common themes, is that if we just look at the woman's body in today's age, And I'm like you, like I want to, save the world. I want to do everything possible to make an impact in this world, which means, 12-hour working days. But the woman's body is not meant to eat the nutrition that we're eating, live in the stressful environment that we're living in. And the consequence of that is this damaged effect on our hormones. And when I hear you say you went around the world and you looked at what like these cultures were doing, that's brilliant. It's like, yeah, we have to go back to our roots and look at how the woman's body thrives. And it does not, I'm in Silicon Valley. It does not thrive in an overstressed, overtoxified world.
I like that, how our bodies as women thrive. And I always get the question, Dr. Mindy, I know you do too. It's like, if menopause is a natural process and it's natural, of course, to grow old, why do we need hormones, right?
Right.
And again, through witnessing other cultures which don't have hormones, aren't getting prescribed bioidenticals and are living really well. The difference is a couple things. Like the big ones that stand out is number one, they're living in nature. Like I think immediately the Northern Ubud, Indonesia, and they're giving gratitude 3 times a day. They're outside in nature. They are getting, we get more than vitamin D from the sun, right? There's a lot of exposure to the natural elements and food that's freshly picked and grown and raised, so quite a different environment than what we're living in.
Yep. Yeah. Are you familiar with Dr. Libby Weaver's work, The Rushing Woman Syndrome? Oh, you would love, that's another book you would love. Go check her out. And I read her book last year. I'm 49 and I'm definitely transitioning through menopause. And what my big takeaway from her book was that I can eat right. I can take all the right herbs. I can do all the textbook right things to balance my hormones. But if my life is on massive stress overload, my body as a woman was not designed to handle that. So that was such a beautiful reframe for me. And then when I read your book and you talk about how insulin and cortisol and oxytocin are really controlling estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, I was like, brilliant. And one of the things I really want to dive into is oxytocin and why are we not talking about oxytocin and cortisol? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that more because that was such a good reframe for me. And how I look at hormones, just like Dr. Weaver's work was so impactful on helping me go to that next level and understand stress plays a huge part in this.
Oh man, huge. And, and I talk a lot about stress because even so after our trauma in 38 with the, early menopause diagnosis reversed that physically, right? There was still the underlying effects of PTSD going on. And so I recently published a blog going from PTSD to post-traumatic growth. And I talk about that in chapter 8 too. But it's that, that underlying. So here, then you get that steep decline in the neuroprotective hormones, progesterone and estrogen in this perimenopause. And there's like this flare up essentially of symptoms of mood swings, of brain fog, or other symptoms that are coming that are all social isolation, depression, anxiety, not to mention sleeplessness, fatigue, aches and pains, right? And I always said, as a gynecologist, I wish it was all about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. They're like my favorite hormones. But it's not. It really is what you said. It's about insulin, cortisol, and oxytocin. And those drive our other hormones too. Those are like, if you think about it in a classroom, the professor, the dean is oxytocin over the entire university. And then their key professors are cortisol and insulin. And then the class is the rest of our 150 or so hormones, right?
Yeah.
And so we look at that as how are we each having our own mission and our own goals, but we need instruction. So that's how we kind of frame the major hormones over the minor hormones, but oxytocin being the most important hormone, because without it, we are disconnected and, feeling alone, feeling burn out, unable to experience what my patients would say to me, like, I don't feel love anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love my work that I used to be so excited about going into. I don't feel the love for my husband that I know I love him, yet I don't feel the love. And that is something I exactly experienced. And so, what is happening there? And I call that the cortisol oxytocin disconnection, right? So that cortisol ends up getting low and oxytocin is also suppressed at the same time. And that feels like burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels that complete disconnect. But oxytocin is something our body produces naturally. We can, with discipline and practice, we can retrain oxytocin, reintroduce oxytocin in abundance into our life through principles and practices that really make a difference in our lives.
Yeah. So. And that, again, the oxytocin piece was just a mind shift for me. And you give some great suggestions in the book on how to raise oxytocin. So again, I'm going to say, here's one thing to know about me. I will not promote anything that I am not passionate about. But when I'm passionate about something, I can't shut up about it. So this book has some great suggestions on how do you raise oxytocin. And I was reading it this weekend, and my 16-year-old son was sitting on the couch yesterday next to one of my dogs. And I'm like, I moved over and I like snuggled with him and the dog. And I was like, don't worry, I just need a little oxytocin right now. I'm working on balancing my hormones. And he kind of rolled his eyes, but it worked.
It does. It so works. It makes a difference. It's that, yes, I just love that. So and being cognizant of it, right? Taking that time to do that, to just sit in it and feel it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is working.
Yeah, that's actually a crucial observation, because I think that when it comes to our health, we do like to have like, oh, I've done this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. But are you actually present in the moment as you're trying to make these changes? So give me like some, I am a checklist kind of gal. I think there is so much information out there that for women, especially when it comes to hormones, it's daunting and it can be overwhelming. And once we get overwhelmed, we have a tendency to shut down and not really do anything about where our health is at. So can we take oxytocin and cortisol and insulin and kind of break them down and go, here are some things you should be looking at doing?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing, that's why you and I like each other, right? I have to have that checklist.
Yeah.
And in my book, I put the daily activity checklist, like even starting out, who am I what am I grateful for? What do I appreciate today? And I usually have my clients, and I do this myself before I wake up. I say, what am I so glad I did yesterday? What moment am I so glad for? And, maybe for you, it's that sitting on the couch and snuggling up with your 16-year-old. I mean, how many more years will you able to do that, right? Grab that moment like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you did that, right? Yeah. And I'm so glad I had some one-on-one time with I had a great book signing yesterday and people I hadn't connected to in a long time. And I'm so glad that I did this. I'd rather stay like, out of the spotlight, right? Mm-hmm. But I was so glad that I did that. It was, so rewarding for me and certainly, for all of us. So like, what am I so glad that I did? And those are the things that are going to matter most to us. And the more of those we do, the more oxytocin we have, the more we feel alive and vibrant and passionate for what we're doing in this world. So that's one thing. And so just thinking like, what do I appreciate? Right there, I'm boosting up oxytocin, decreasing cortisol. And then, like how many hours did I intermittent fast? Right there, I'm controlling insulin, right? I'm creating insulin sensitivity. I'm aware of it. Did I check for urine pH and ketones? Okay, let me monitor, give those checks and balances on myself. What gets measured gets managed, right?
I love that.
So just being able to check these things off on our to-do list makes a big difference. And then we're accountable for these simple strategic lifestyle hacks or principles that make an incredible hormonal difference in our lives.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hoping people have a mental shift on is what you said about 5 or 10 minutes ago, which is we want to manage estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. yet it's very difficult. I mean, you can throw all the medication at it, you can throw all the herbs at it, but if you aren't over here looking at these other 3 hormones, it's going to be a roller coaster, and you may not accomplish what you want to accomplish. So and I love the urinary pH. I love the idea of tests that are inexpensive and everybody can do. I'm a big believer that we live in a time where we can be our own doctor, that we can drive our own health. We just need to get really good, concrete ideas like what you're giving. So
and that empowerment back, right? Like, okay, it's my responsibility. What is my body telling me? Okay, I need to listen to this versus tell me, Dr. Anna, what is my body telling me? I'm like,
right.
Oh, wait, you got to figure this out for yourself. Here's a checklist. But
right.
also, we know, and this is exactly what you're saying, is that it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones.
Yeah.
Right. It takes more than hormones to fix our hormones, because if that wasn't the case, everyone on thyroid supplementation would be thin.
Right.
So we know that's not the case. And that's it for me too. Without understanding these really powerful strategic nutritional principles and lifestyle strategies that work together to empower our body's natural hormonal balance, fighting inflammation, improving our circadian cycle, we're living with, again, with Mother Nature versus against it as much as possible by design, then we are like, feeling alive again. We are feeling passion again. We are feeling real, genuine health.
Mm-hmm. So. And it's in a totality. I mean, that's what I love is it's like, it's more than your food. It's more than getting the perfect workout. It's more than the right herb. We say often in my group of docs that I hang out with that you need a multi-therapeutic approach to every health condition. And one of my recent ahas as I've been working with people is that in the medical world, we have a paradigm of one pill, one problem. So when we come over to the natural world, we try to apply that same one pill, one problem. And it doesn't work like that. The body's more complicated. And then on top of that, the woman's body is more complicated. So again, it's beautiful how you're allowing us to expand that vision. So let's talk about keto though. Let's get into keto. And then, some of the questions that my resetters had were, and I see it in my resetter group, we do what I call a fast training week. We take 5 days out of every month and we practice different styles of fasting. And I've come up with 7 of them. And in that process, we're getting a lot of people who are not just fasting, but they're doing fasting and keto. They're really marrying the two, which I'm a huge fan of. But in that process, they're seeing things like hair loss, hot flashes emerging. I've watched more women who are in menopause start to do fasting and keto, and all of a sudden, like they come out of menopause, they start to get a period again. So
absolutely,
I would love your take on that. And is that to me, coming out of menopause, is that a bad thing? Is it not?
Good thing.
Right, exactly. And what's the hair loss? What's hot flashes? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, hair loss and hot flashes, not a good thing, right? So there can be a couple reasons. Well, hair loss, we always think nutritional insufficiency. So get measuring that urine pH, right? Where are we going to get minerals from? Where are we recirculating? Are we recirculating our toxins? Are we constipated? What else is going on? Or any of the foods that we're eating could be affecting us in other ways. So we really want to look at that, nutrient insufficiencies that are caused, or toxicities, or inflammatory foods, many reasons that could be causing that hair loss. Plus, if we're stressed, and the type of hair loss that I experienced when I had like near balding on both sides of my head, dramatic, was from stress. And when we're stressed, we increase, of course, cortisol increases the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, and that causes an increased conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, which makes perfect sense why I had the male type of balding pattern going on there. And that was fascinating. So it needed to learn, number one, stress management. But in the meantime, right, what can work right away is the nutrients to help block that enzyme. at least in the short term, right? And
Okay.
so zinc, is one of them. That's really important. Chrysin, another one. And looking at that, zinc, I would typically do 60 milligrams a day. And that was beneficial for that type of stress-related hair loss. Nutrient insufficiency, start checking your urinary pH. Increase those micronutrients from dark green leafy vegetables. You will feel tremendously better. My clients in my Keto Green program or Keto Alkaline program, my Magic Menopause, actually the name of the group that we've now run thousands of women through, as well as the Breeze program, our 10-day program, 97% improvement in symptoms in 10 days. So that includes hot flashes with over a 53 or 57% reduction in symptom scores. And so that means, like I saw a post yesterday on Amazon for a review of the book, is that her MSQ, medical symptom toxicity score, and I give that in the book, or went from 55 to 20 in 10 days. I mean, that's huge. We don't, no pills, no, antidepressants, no anything else to do that. And hot flashes are really interesting. Sometimes we're awakening. So again, depending on how we're doing keto, depending on how we're breaking fasting, we want to break with alkalinizers. We really do want to break our fasting with alkalinizers, especially as women. Men, high levels of testosterone, they can get away with a lot more. But ladies, we want that delicate balance of neurotransmitters to really work for us, not against us. So breaking fast with alkalinizers can really help with that, detoxifying estrogen. If we're going into a higher hormone-laden diet, possibly, that could also be affecting us and causing us to have estrogen dominant symptoms, more hot flashes. So we need to look so many different reasons that we could be experiencing that. One of the number one, so in my program, we see a reduction in hot flashes typically within 10 to 14 days. And one of the reasons is because with intermittent fasting and getting keto alkaline or keto green, we are creating that insulin sensitivity. And one of the a very common reason for hot flashes is insulin resistance. So awakening the receptors, clearing them out, balancing our insulin levels, and seems to overcome that.
Yeah, and that's, I would, just by looking at the comments that so many women say on the Resetter group and on my YouTube page, it's like there's the typical statement is, I started doing keto, I started fasting, and it helped this, and this, but but it didn't do this, and this. And I think that, again, what I love, the Keto Green idea is spectacular. I'm a huge fan of really nurturing your microbiome. So yes. I call it ketobiotic, where I'm like, we got to eat sauerkraut, and we got to feed our good bacteria with like asparagus and leeks, and like nature has provided an amazing resource for us, and we need to lean on that. And so I think that is really crucial. And I'm hoping that my resetters are listening to this, that are doing like a typical one meal a day, where they are doing a long fast and then they break it with meat and fat, and they don't add in the greens, and then they're more acidic, and they're still getting all those symptoms that we're talking about. Yeah. So I love the reframe on that. Tell me a little bit, like what would you break your fast with? Is it a salad? Like, what's your typical thing you break a fast with?
So typically, like first thing in the morning after, fasting, I always try to get dinner by 5-6 p.m. in the evening. So when I'm breaking fasting in the morning, and we can talk about, is this breaking fasting or not? I just will do a couple shots of Mighty Maca. I'll do a couple shots of Mighty Maca with water. There's over 30 superfoods in here that, like, if I just do that, I feel energized. And then I'll have my Keto Green smoothie after my workout. So, but first thing, like I'm drinking some water, alkaline water, and having some antioxidant. Like, I want toxins out. My body's been producing them. We're ready to clear them out, right? And with playing, like you said, I love how you said that experimentation. What works for you? I'm all into self-discovery. Yep. This works best for me. And breaking fast by 10 a.m. keeps me more motivated, a stronger willpower, a stronger, I'm raising a young daughter. So a better mom frame of mind. For me, a lot better. I don't do, except Sundays, I'll do a longer fast on Sundays. And then sometimes I'll go and do 3 days of fasting in a row in different ways, periodically, exercising that fasting muscle. But on a regular basis, I have a Mighty Maca shot first thing in the morning. I may add some apple cider vinegar in there. I may add some squirt of lemon juice too, but that's how I'm starting the morning. And then, around 10 or so, I'm going to have my keto green smoothie, which is just whatever greens I have in the fridge. So like today it's celery, a handful of bean sprouts, and a scoop of my keto green protein, which is 0 grams of sugar, monk fruit sweetened, and some MCT or a nut butter, some healthy fat, or a quarter to a half of avocado. So I'm thinking fat, protein, and greens first thing. And the fiber is really key from the greens, but also adding, especially if you're experiencing hot flashes or, any other hormonal symptoms, adding some flax seeds and freshly ground flax seeds in there too, just to help with estrogen detoxification as well.
Yeah. And I'm geeking out on everything you're saying, because I'm like, yeah, I can add that in. I could do this. So I had the pleasure of really having some good discussions with Naomi Whittle back in November. Have you interacted with her at all in her Glow 15 book?
No, not at all.
So she's awesome. And one of the things that her passion is autophagy, and really understanding how we can tap into autophagy. And what she's really encouraging women to do is, as we fast, we can slow the aging process down and all those wonderful things that we want. So she wants people to break their fast with fat, which I think is great. And the idea is that if you break a fast with fat, your blood sugar won't spike. So you can actually extend your fast a little longer. And in my Resetter tribe, everybody loved that. We did 5 days of what I call autophagy fasting, where we all broke our 15, 16-hour fat with fast. I mean, fast. I know. It's always get that switched around. But now you were giving me another thought, and that is, let's add in some greens. And that's awesome. And once a month we do different types of fasting, and I'm going to have to give you credit for that and put some type of fast together that is always breaking it with greens. I think that's beautiful. So
yeah. And again, looking to see how you do with that, right? Because the fats in the morning, I'll say you have to have fats in the morning to stabilize your blood sugar. You got to have those greens to detoxify. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. That's a key part of the hormonal balance piece.
Yeah. And then I know this came up in my group as well, is talk about maca. What does maca do, and how, not only what will it do symptomatically, but how does it affect hormones?
Well, part of my journey when I was first diagnosed with early menopause at 38 and infertility is I went to Peru. Again, I needed to find answers I didn't have anything else in my doctor's bag, right? Mm-hmm. So indiscriminately, I traveled. And in Peru, they say, well, if you're not feeling well, drink some maca. If you're infertile, drink maca. If your baby's not thriving, drink maca. And then they would elbow my husband and say, and it's the Peruvian Viagra, drink some maca, right? So of course I'm drinking maca, but I had to find out why. As the scientist in me and researcher in me, I'm like, well, what is maca exactly? And it's interesting because the breakdown of it only grows. And what I use in Mighty Maca Plus, the combination, it is Peruvian organic maca, right? There's a difference there. There's Chinese maca, there's other macas, but maca from Peru grows in the Andes at high altitude, and it has its own specific proteins called macaines, not found in any other crucifer. It's part of the cruciferous family. So I was like, okay, breast healthy. It's alkaline root. And it was known by the ancient Incan warriors, it's reported, that they would drink maca before they went into battle to increase their stamina. And lo and behold, maca has a high amount of arginine, which we know increases nitric oxide, which is how Viagra works.
Awesome.
So,
and for women too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. For sexual function, for hormone balance, for all of these things. The problem with me is I couldn't stand how it tasted. So that's where I really started getting creative. I'm like, I can't have a negative reaction to something every time I drink it and expect it to be good for me.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least long term. And so I just started combining it with different nutrients that I know are very beneficial and that I experienced as I went along that I had never experienced before in my life: acerola, cat's claw, mangosteen, turmeric shots, and experiencing different foods. And so I put those into Mighty Maca too, to just create this superfood combination. And it works and it tastes good.
I haven't tried your Mighty Maca.
I'm going to send you some.
Oh, thank you. I really want to try it. And the first thing I want to tell you is thank you for making it organic. I think that it's really, there's so many inconsistencies in the health world where we say, oh, this is going to improve your health, but then it's not made organic. It's sprayed with pesticides. And it's like, wait, that's a contradiction. That's not helping. So thank you. I think I'd love to try it.
Yeah. So in Mighty Maca, it's the 30 superfood combination. It's organic maca from Peru. And I'm very specific about that. And there's many other organic ingredients in them, but there are extracts in there as well. So purified extracts of other like green tea extract, blueberry extract. And it's always, for me, it's gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free. It's tested for heavy metals. It's tested for fungi. It's tested for everything, name it, because I've had my baby drinking it. I've had my god baby drinking it, since she was 2, she's now 6. And, it's, again, has to be a clean product, we have to know our sources, and that makes the difference.
Absolutely. I'm in my clinic and on my online community as well. I am so picky about supplements. You need to know what's in them. You need to know if the heavy metals, like for example, part of my hormonal journey, as I found out I was really high in lead. And at 43 years old, I started getting massive hot flashes, anxiety, like out of nowhere it came. And when I tested my heavy metals, my lead was through the roof. My mercury was like pretty moderate. But once I started to detox those heavy metals, wow, like about 90% of those symptoms went away. So it's such, again, in the health world, what I'm trying to do for my community is really give people a new paradigm to operate in, but then give them steps. And throwing supplements at the problem without changing lifestyle, without detoxifying, is not going to get you where you want to be. And if you're throwing toxic supplements at it, it's really not where you want to be.
Right. I had a client who came to me. She had a complement of a high functioning CEO, amazing, world-class speaker. And she was having a mental breakdown. And she'd been to, all over. Right. And she was struggling. And the worst thing was her depression and her, like she called it vacuous symptom, just feeling like she was in a black hole. And so I had to understand what caused this, right? Because you don't just go like this overnight. There's a cause, there's a trigger. So we went back, honestly, just 8 months to, number one, she was taking some Chinese herbs that were not clean products and that had high metals, but also she had 3 dental procedures at the same time without cautionary practices being instilled. So that left this at the age of perimenopause with decreasing levels of our neuroprotective hormones, progesterone and estrogen, left this vulnerable time period to create this very rapid decline in health. And so it does make a difference. And I'm very picky about it. And also with what I recommend for those reasons. But it's always like, you have to look at those pieces, like what could it be that's causing me to feel this way? So trust, then it's like, okay, well, how is this working for me? Even if it's the best supplement, but how does my body react to it? And discerning that too. So.
Oh yeah, I have a ton I would say on that. And one is that when I'm in my yoga class, this was a couple of years ago, I had one of the instructors say, you're in a pose, stay on your own mat. You don't need to be looking at what everybody else in the class is doing. Stay on your own mat. And I think the same thing is with health, is you listen to the principles I teach, the principles you teach, which are very, there's a lot of overlap. Then you got to identify what's right for you. And you have to then create your path. The way that I've broke it down recently is that there's lifestyle things you're going to need to change and need to do. And then there's root causes you're going to have to address. And for some people, they're going to have to do both. They're going to have to marry the two. For some people, they can go keto and they're like, oh, I'm amazing, I dropped 10 pounds. But everybody's path is unique. And I know that there's a phrase that's coming out in healthcare now called personalized healthcare. And I think it's really important for people to understand that these are all incredible principles. And then there's your path. There's your way to apply them, so that you don't feel bad. Especially as women, we have a tendency to go, well, why did my friend do a 5-day water fast or go on keto and they got great results and I'm not losing weight at all? And I think it's really important to just keep searching, keep digging, because there's only one path for you.
I 100% agree. And it was interesting. I remember having two patients come in at the same time. They were friends, came in because they were having the same problems, right? Low libido, menopausal symptoms, irritability. They both went out with two entirely different symptoms. I mean, treatment plans, right? Two entirely different treatment plans. And then they called me and they said, well, we have the same issues. Why are our treatment plans different? I'm like, well, you are both unique. And this is, in like what we can do together here for you is different than what we can do together here for you. And it was interesting, the resistance in that, right? We just want one thing.
Right. One thing. What we want it to be simple, and we wish it could be simple. But the more you engage in this information, the more you learn. You'll find your path, or you start to reach out to practitioners and doctors that are familiar with this work, and then they start to guide you through it. So. Let's finish up on this topic. Although I could talk to you for hours. One of the big things that brought me to this information is just how many women in my world were getting breast cancer. And I know a lot of my resetters had questions about like HRT and bioidenticals. And then we haven't really touched on estrogen dominance, which is one of the contributors to breast cancer. So how would you know when you need to go on the medication, and what can we all collectively do to pull ourselves out of this estrogen dominant world that we're living in?
Yeah, definitely. I say go keto green, right? That insulin sensitivity is key, but detoxifying. That's why I'm always big on detoxifying our hormones safely, right? So as our hormones are shifting and we're getting into that, if we're experiencing estrogen dominant, so PMS symptoms, irritability, mood swings, depression, waking up in the middle of the night, not waking up feeling rested, right? Waking up still feeling tired, exhausted all day, the weight gain, difficulty or weight loss resistance, right? Also other symptoms, bloating and irregular periods, heavier than usual, or breakthrough bleeding. All of those are symptoms that we'll face. So the biggest things that, that are key to help us with is empowering our body to create its own natural hormone production and remove it safely. Mindy, when and you do this in your practice, but when I started understanding, through my own journey, how to help patients, I went from doing 2 to 3 surgeries per week to 2 to 3 per year, because my patient no longer needed the surgery, because their body was self-regulating.
Mm-hmm.
Their symptoms went away when we got to the root cause. And that's really empowering. And the same with breast disease, because I would see it, the breast cyst, the, sensitive breast with the cycle worsening, or breast cyst irregularity, calcifications on mammogram, right? All of those are warning signs. All of those are warning signs, but yet we just wait till we feel a lump or diagnose a cancer in order to do something. Well, not if we take this proactive approach, and that is, nourish our body, support the nutrients that we need. So every hormone receptor, our breast receptors, also iodine-rich foods, and healthy fats, healthy essential fatty acids, gamma linoleic acid, omega-3 fatty acids, and that combination, as well as detoxifiers to help support hormone metabolism. Patients stop having breast cysts. I had one patient in particular. She used to come in every 3 months for a breast exam, and every 3 months I would drain a cyst, right? And then I started learning this, and implementing this into her life, nutritional strategies, some supplements, like I supplemented with low dose iodine in her instance, bioidentical progesterone on the second half of her cycle, and gamma linoleic acid. And so she came in 3 months, no cyst for me to aspirate. 6 months, no cyst for me. This was unheard of. And so that's empowering. We have to heal at the cellular level to keep, just like we have to have a healthy family at the dinner table, we have to communicate well and positively with each other. Our cells have to communicate well and positively with each other. So we turn off that bad acting cell. When there's chaos, inflammation, toxins, we can't tell that other neighbor or cell to stop. And so I think that's really the empowering piece here to help us with this symptoms. I had so many patients that would come to see me who've had, like as a referral physician and in a small town, who had had breast cancer and just felt like hell. I mean, they were just waiting for the next shoe to drop, essentially. And to be able to just say, okay, well, what's caused your cancer and how do we, empower you so that's never an issue ever again? It's a really important discovery. And I talk about this in my book with one of my clients who I met 20 years ago, who had breast cancer in her 30s, late 30s, and status post chemotherapy, lumpectomy, and, a lot of treatment. And she was just waiting for the next shoe to drop, essentially. Her vitamin D was super low. No one checked it. And anyway, I saw her last night at my book signing, and I just, awesome to see her and just thriving and being such an advocate for other women. I'm like, every woman needs this.
Yeah. I always coach my clients that you got to ask yourself why. Why did the body create a cyst? Did the body create cancer? Why is the body doing this? If all we do is go and attack the end product and never get to the why, then new things keep appearing. And I'm just so grateful that doctors like you are teaching women that, because there's so many that aren't, and they're just treating the symptoms. So anyways, I know you got to go. I got to go, but this has been delightful. And I know I have a couple of resources I know from my community. Like, we want everybody to get the book. So I'll leave a link there and go and get the Hormone Fix. Where else can people find you? It's a beautiful cover, by the way.
Thank you. Well, colors of ketosis, right? Kinda, and colors of the pH scale on the bottom, but also the colors of our chakras, right?
So smart. It's attractive. Like, it came in the mail, and I was like, I just wanted to read it. So good job.
Thank you.
So where else can people find your work? And my community is from all over, but I am in Silicon Valley, and you're going to be here local. So if you can just say, where people can maybe come meet you at a book signing, and then where they can find you online would be awesome.
Yeah. So I'm online at dranna.com. So DRANNA.com. And I've Facebook at Dr. Anna C. Find me there too. And I'll be in Silicon Valley, March 21st at the Silicon Valley Health Institute. So I would love to do a book signing then as well. And so, and also KetoCon, I'll be at KetoCon. Mindy, you got to come. That's in Austin. Great city.
Yeah, I've heard
and that's at the end of June.
Okay.
Or at the end of May.
June. Yeah. So again, great resources. And this has been awesome. I really, again, could talk to you for hours on it. And I just really I hope that women take this episode and they share it with others, and they just understand how powerful they are, how miraculous our bodies are. And we just have never been given an instruction manual on how to use it. So here's one of your instruction manuals. Go get the book, and let's start a conversation in the Resetter group. We've had a lot of people asking questions, a lot of people from all over the world. saying hello. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. This has been incredible. And good luck with your book. I know it's just going to soar.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Mindy here. If you loved this information, subscribe to my channel. I do some really cool things on this channel. Like every Thursday, I do a live for you specifically to answer your questions and make sure that you're always moving your health forward in a really positive direction. So excited to have you here. Subscribe, share it out, and never lose sight of the miracle that you are.